what we did was we said, let's go find the best practices, and then how do we make sure that we can affect change in a business? We do that by creating a cadence of accountability, habit-changing activities.
One of the things in our framework is for strategy execution, you have to have.
Hello and welcome to this episode. I'm pleased to be joined today by Brad Gaulin and Mr. Robert Welke, and they are the founders and partners of MExit.ca, and guys are doing some great things, and I've been pleased to be acquainted with you the past couple of weeks. With that, I'll let one of you maybe give me your entrepreneurial story, then the other one can go, and then maybe tell me, how'd you guys join forces?
My journey started in '94. That was when I started my first company. I had been working as an engineer before that. I did an MBA specializing in entrepreneurship. '94, I actually took that education and started the real school of what being an entrepreneur truly is, which is doing it. So I've had 10 startups over my career. MExit's the 10th. And it's been just a roller coaster ride. I think once you become an entrepreneur, you're kind of ruined for anything else. And, driving your own train is something that you just get so in the habit of. But it's been an amazing journey. 3 of the companies I've started, I've sold. 3 of them I merged into bigger things, and then I bought a few. And my three biggest learning experiences were all software startups. They were all SaaS platforms at different stages. First one in '99, another one in 2011, and another one in 2018. And you take all the money you make from your other businesses, you throw it into a software deal.
There you go.
And it all goes away. Anyway, it kind of set me up for where we're at now, because what I discovered is I don't want to be a CEO of my own startups anymore. I want to empower others. And, there were so many lessons learned in that journey, and the school of hard knocks, and when we train teams in companies on how to grow and scale and get them off the back of the owners. One of the things we tell them is we're going to train them everything you won't learn at MBA school.
Okay.
And it's really the practical day-to-day stuff, how to hire, who are the right people, building teams, especially on the people side, because a lot of times business educations tend to focus on the numbers, but the key to all businesses is the people.
Well said. Yeah, well said. Robert, how about you? What's your background?
Well, this is kind of interesting because I didn't realize my entrepreneurial journey predated Brad's, because I started my first company in 1991. We together with a partner, we launched an environmental services company. We ended up building the business plan, obtaining a license from the Alberta government to treat hazardous waste in the province of Alberta, raised $10 million in seed capital, purchased the equipment, built a pilot facility, built a full-blown operational facility, and launched that service in Alberta in 1994 with a big oil and gas company. Shortly thereafter, we went public, and that's when I left. I had a feeling about some of the directors of the company, and sure enough, 18 months later, those same directors drove the company into the ground. So I lost that, but extremely valuable lesson in that I will get to. Then I was in the financial services industry for 10 years, started a practice from scratch, grew it, ended up breaking up and selling into three different advisors. 10 years later, when one of my clients came to me and said, "You're an entrepreneur, why are you doing that? Come help me with my business." So I did. We launched that business, grew it to $5.5 million a year, almost sold it in 2014. There's a whole story behind that and why it didn't sell. Part of the reason why I do what I do now. And then during that time, we launched another company, the two of us together. And in 2017, he passed due to cancer. So his wife took over the business, and it became pretty evident about 18 months later we were not going to be getting along for the long term. So I took my exit out of the business at that point and took some time off. My wife said, take a year off, just relax, find out what you want to do when you grow up, which is what I did, and started doing research into business consulting, change management, leadership training, all those kinds of things. And then I was introduced to Brad, because this is one of your follow-up questions. I was introduced to Brad by a mutual friend, and the two of us hit it off like a house on fire right from the very beginning, in terms of our core values, in terms of what we wanted to try and do. And we saw an opportunity in exit planning after doing some research around what was happening both in Canada and in the U.S. We have a similar problem. You call it the silver tsunami. We call it the succession tsunami. So that's when we started this journey of what we're doing now, building the playbook that we've created.
Excellent, excellent. So a lot of great stories, a lot of as we know, as entrepreneurs, highs and lows of the entrepreneurial journey. Robert, what would you tell 20-year-old entrepreneurial Robert if you could go back in time and drop some pearls of wisdom in his lap? What would you tell him?
It actually ties back to what Brad said as well, which is, you know what? People. Make sure you're hiring the right people. Make sure you have values alignment with those people. Make sure that they understand what the vision is, because at the end of the day, it's going to be that team that drives everything. And if you have a gut feel that you can't trust somebody, listen to it.
That's good advice. Brad, how about you?
I would probably advise myself to find my passion, because I do a lot of coaching and some through the university and stuff with kind of future entrepreneurs. So I have this discussion often. And one of the things I tell them is that if they don't have a purpose, if they don't have something they truly feel passionate about, they're going to make the world better. You know, they're going to make a difference. And if that's not what's driving them, if it's about the dollars, they'll never survive the entrepreneurial journey. Because, you know, if it's only about the dollars, it gets tough, and it always gets tough. And, you know, they'll quit. And so when I coached them, I said, you'd better be passionate about this, because if this is something you truly believe the world needs, then you're going to crawl over broken glass if you have to make this happen. And that is so crucial to their success.
Robert, just a moment ago, you alluded to what you observe happening in exit planning. So one or both of you are part of the SEPA community?
Both of us are.
All right. So describe that for me. What is it you see happening in the exit planning world? You know, kind of regardless of which side of the border you're on.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Sometimes I feel like I'm a captain on a ship looking at the horizon, and I see this storm coming. And you know that you can't go away from the storm because that's the direction you're traveling. But the problem is you don't know what to do to address that storm. So I see a lot of business owners are going to be in a lot of difficulty in the next few years. I mean, we know the statistics around how often and how many businesses sell on a percentage of those that go for sale. We know how often, what on a percentage basis, how many business owners are actually prepared. And we also know that the numbers, the sheer magnitude of what's coming at us, it's not just a small squall. It is a hurricane, right? And this is the thing I don't get about what's happening out there. There's business owners not realizing that if they look left and right, one of the two of the three people that are in that room with them, two of them won't be making it out of this, right? In fact, if there's four people in the room, only one will be making it out of this. So it's scary, and this is actually what drove my comment to Brad that we spoke with you about the other day, which is, do you want to impact 10 people or do you want to impact 10,000 people? We want to impact 10,000 people, and our purpose is to help owners get it right, because we keep getting this wrong over and over and over again.
And that truth that you just quoted, that 1 in 4 will make it out of the room, it doesn't have to be that way.
No,
right? This is avoidable. It's preventable, right?
Exactly.
It's preventable. So that sounds like a great lead into why did you guys found MExit? Why is it? What inspired you, Brad? You talked a moment ago about passion. Why do you guys do what you do? Why MExit? Why'd you land on this?
I'm going to go back a little pre-MExit as to my why. For the last 17 years, I've been doing business growth coaching, not consulting. Consulting I did with E&Y, and I go in and tell people what to do knowing they'll never do it. Coaching is a very different experience because coaching is really about going in and helping them figure out for themselves, because if it's their idea, they will absolutely commit to doing it. And that's the key to their success, is it's got to be their initiative, their choice. And that choice issue is a huge part of what got us to this exit planning. Because the challenge I found in those 17 years is a lot of business owners are doing okay, so why do I need to change? And what I discovered is there really had to be a trigger. There had to be something that compelled them to open up and be willing to, or ideally to be passionate about embracing change. And so what I eventually figured out, that the irrefutable trigger to make that happen is the exit. When they find out that their company is, their life's work is not worth what they think it is, and it's not going to give them the legacy they think it will give them, that's a huge reality check, and that becomes very compelling. So in terms of motivation, to me, as an entrepreneur, all of us as entrepreneurs, I think it's a tragedy when you everything you put into your business. I mean, the blood and the sweat and the sacrifices you make, the sacrifices your family makes. If you can't harvest that value of what you've created and that work and effort, it's a tragedy. Just a tragedy, not just for the entrepreneur, not just for you, but for everyone you touch. For your family, for your employees, for your customers, for the community you work in and you're the economic engine for. If that can't continue, I think is tragic, and I don't want to see that happen.
As you know, in my work, I talk about stakeholders and helping people identify who are your stakeholders, right? I like to say the job of a publicly traded CEO is to grow shareholder value, and the privately held business, that CEO has a bit of a luxury that they are able to think about it in more broad terms and think, who are my stakeholders, right? Who am I really giving a stake in the game? Whether they're a shareholder or not, there's typically a lot of stakeholders. Robert, how about you? When you and Brad met and you said, man, we've got a shared passion for this. What part of it caused that? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I'm going to allude back to something that I'd mentioned earlier, which was we almost sold the business. In 2014, we were approached by private equity to buy our company out. They saw us as a huge opportunity. They initially underbid it on us, and we said, no thanks, not interested. So we said to them, you need to come and sit with us for a day. So they brought their entire funding team from Toronto and all over Canada to sit with us for a day, and we walked them through what we had built. At the end of that day, the guys from these big money guys said, you know what, you guys have stuff $40 million businesses don't have here. You guys are the ideal foundation for a roll-up, not one of the candidates to be in a roll-up. So we said, okay, now we're talking turkey, let's talk again. So they revised the offer to something we liked, and we started down the process. So we thought we were ready for sale. We were positioning ourselves to be sold. Our vision, my partner and I's vision, was we were going to build the company for 20 years, then sell it. So we were working along that path. But you know what? We weren't ready. And like most business owners that are approached when somebody says, hey, I'd like to buy you, we scrambled to get ready to sell, right? It wasn't the financial performance. It wasn't the systems and processes. It was during the due diligence. We had stuff that they didn't understand, so it took extra time for them to understand the things that we had built. And that ended up causing the deal to be extended, or the due diligence to be extended beyond the initial 6 weeks to about 14 weeks. And so we finally closed off the due diligence. It was done December, just before Christmas in 2014. And Brad's laughing because he knows what came after that. January 5th.
That was the punchline, yeah.
Yeah, January 5th of 2015, the price of oil crashed in the toilet, and we lost the deal. Because in Alberta, when the price of oil goes in the toilet, guess what? All the money leaves the province. My best estimate is there's over $1 billion that went south that day. So we ended up, licking our wounds and saying, okay, we're okay. We didn't want to sell to begin with, but let's keep going. And that's when my partner got ill and ended up spending the next 2 years dealing with that. And then he finally passed away.
Oh, it's an interesting curveball. I'm sorry for that part of your story, but certainly it fuels the passion. It fuels the what I hear in your voice in our conversations about how much this means to you and why.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Um,
business owners work way too hard, like Brad said. Their life is put into this business. And if they can't get this right, they're not the only ones that suffer, right?
yeah,
But they
well,
do suffer because, if you can't get your wealth out of your business, then it's not really an asset.
Brad, so in your work as a business coach, and I like how you clearly define that and separate it from a consultant. What's the best compliment you can think of as a coach? What's something that you've been told in your career that really sticks out as an amazing? You have those moments in life where you realize that you've really done something that touched somebody.
Yep. What I've heard numerous times is when the CEO, the founder, the owner who brought me in or brought us in, they turn around and say, you know what, we're a different company now than when we started working with you,
Wow,
and
great praise. Yeah,
we've grown. It's been an amazing journey, and we couldn't have done it without you. So we've heard that numerous times, and honestly, that's what motivates me. The getting the owner what they ideally want, getting them to a place where they can see a future outside their business that's even better than their life in their business, like life beyond. And I talked about that fear of what they don't want, which is a failed harvest of their business. But also, ideally, they truly need to see a future that's even brighter, something to go for in a positive way. Because a lot of times, if they don't have that, they're not driven in the same way. So we kind of need both whys to really kind of get them to a no regret type of transition in their business.
fantastic. Robert, how about you? Of all the work you've done advising, give me a great compliment you've received from a client.
I think the best compliment that we and or I have ever received is, you have helped me create a team that I could never have done myself. And we've seen that over and over and over again. Because the stumbling block that many business owners have is they are experts in what they do. What they're not experts is in leadership, is in mentoring, as in coaching, in and understanding what needs to actually happen to build a cohesive, productive, and empowered team.
Yeah, another way we describe it is they're great at what they do, as Robert says, but they're not necessarily great at the business of business.
Okay, let's stay there. That's a good lead in. I was going to ask you, when you step in and you begin working with your entrepreneurial clients, what's one of, what's the an example of one of the biggest mistakes that you see people making, or maybe an elephant in the room that you see them ignoring?
I'll lead off on this one because I was thinking about this question earlier. I'm a scuba diver, right? And I'm a cold water scuba diver, and I do a lot of low visibility, zero visibility scuba diving. I'm not a cave diver or anything, but one of the things that I was teaching my students last night was compass work, how to use a compass. And one of the things that I always stress to the students, you're not going to believe it, but the compass is always right. So the thing that you need to understand
Love
if
that.
you want to work with a business owner, you've got to give them a direction. You have to get them to trust the compass so that they understand that the roadmap we have delivered for them actually works. So it is the business owners that do not embrace the process. What I mean by that in the analogy is they don't trust the compass, right, to do the thing that needs to be done. So we have had the most success with the companies that fully embrace our process. And we have seen success that you would absolutely be, most business owners would salivate over, right, in terms of short timeline, achieving big things in very short periods of time, and being successful. The ones we are not successful with are the owners that either don't believe the compass or they sabotage the work that we do because they think they're smarter than we are.
Sure.
And it's not us. They think they're smarter than the team because we bring out the talent and wisdom of the collective team, and that's what takes a business to that next level.
Yeah, Brad, I had a experience one day with a leadership team of a bank I was working with as a when I was working as an EOS implementer, and one of the vice presidents said we were looking at all the red numbers on their scorecard, and one of the vice presidents said, "I don't think our scorecard is working." And the CEO of the bank said, "It's not the scorecard that isn't working," right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and to
Well,
your point, the thing I see most often especially when we start with a company, we train them on people. What are the right people? What are the characteristics, et cetera, et cetera. We teach them about drop grading and how to live that and how to evaluate it and see it. And every team we've ever worked with, there's always, all it takes is one person to kill the performance and the capabilities of an entire
so
team.
true.
And I would say the biggest mistake I see is them being slow to react. One of my mentors was a turnaround specialist, and he turned around billion-dollar companies. And his motto was always, it's always about the people, and hire slow, fire fast. And, you know, a lot of times loyalty, they're so loyal, they've been with us, etc. Well, honestly, your loyalty has to be the team and the overall health of the business, not any one individual. And that's
One
a tough
individual.
lesson.
That is a hard lesson. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, especially if
Really
they've been
hard to
with you for a long time and have helped you along the journey, right?
Yes. Yeah, it is possible to be overly loyal. Well, tell me about how you guys, um, Robert, you alluded to it earlier. You guys had a bit of an epiphany and you shifted in process, you're actively shifting, I feel like out of fourth gear into fifth gear here when you said, we're not in this to help 10 businesses. We want to help 10,000 businesses. Tell me about how you guys had the epiphany about MExit and how you could scale this and deliver these kind of results to um, business owners across North America and frankly probably across the planet.
I think part of the catalyst for that shift was the reality that when we woke up and started understanding what was happening within the business community, right? So CEPA issued the report in the States. I started doing some research into Canada, and there's been four seminal reports that have come out in Canada on this, one by the Ontario government, one by the Business Development Bank, and one by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. And they all said the same thing, but the challenge is it got worse. They initially did this assessment in 2015, and at that time the results indicated that around 54% of Canadian business owners wanted to be out of business by 2025. Okay, fast forward about 6 years, and what hit us? COVID. So the CFIB went back and talked to all of the people that they talked to in their initial survey, and they came back with, wow, it's not 54% anymore, it's 76% of business owners want to be out of business in the next 5 to 10 years.
COVID just created so much friction, so much headwinds for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, and many of them said, this is the final straw, I'm done. I got to figure out a way to get out of here. The problem is they don't know where to start, right? And they don't know what they need to do, right? So that is really when Brad and I said, you know what, this is nice that we have this framework and we're creating this process. And we had built most of the process out back in 2021. We hadn't laid it out formally, but we knew what we needed to do. And that's when we said, do you want to help 10 people or do you want to help 10,000? And the realization, if you want to help 10,000 people, it can't just be us. We have to create a toolbox or a process that we can give, rent, whatever, to other people so that they can actually do the same kind of work and see the same kind of results that we've seen. And that's what led us down the path of more formally structuring it, making it an actual playbook that people can actually use, and creating the platform that, hey, here's the roadmap, here's the tools, here's how you use the tools, here's how you actually take an owner along this journey, and it's all laid out for them just like paint by numbers. And that's the
Can I add
reality
to
we had to come to, is we had to make it simple.
Can I add to that as well?
You bet.
For me, one of the things is when Robert and I got certified with our CPAs, we're exit planning advisors. The stat that 85% of exit planners don't actually do the value acceleration. They don't do the enablement of that business to thrive without the owner. And that seemed to be very strange because, you know, you can come up with a great plan for the owner, but the wealth and the key to the plan is always getting that business off their back. Otherwise, it's not worth anything. And, you know, there's lots of tools for the planning, coordination, etc. And a lot of these tools will tell you what to do, but they don't tell you how to do it. And so to us, the big hole we saw was a how-to resource that would enable and empower exit planners, coaches, consultants to do the kind of work we do, because, you know, there's lots of business growth coaches, but this is growing the business with the underlying purpose of making it capable to scale without the owners, regardless of owners. So even if they get bought, whatever, you've got a great team there. They're going to keep, what really sells businesses is create a great business that can thrive and can reinvent itself and adapt and always be growing. That's what's going to get you the maximum value.
And your toolbox, I wish I was aware of it sooner, because I've had too many conversations in my career where I am called into a CPA's office and the business owner tells me about their business, and I have to tell them after some diligence, you know, good news, bad news. While you do own this business, what you really own is a high risk job. Okay. And I can't get somebody to come give you $5 to $10 million so that they can work 100 hours a week and never go on vacation the way you do. You guys, at least your framework delivers solutions. Yeah, as I said, I lots of faces come to mind when I was looking at your platform and saying, "Boy, I wish I had that referral to provide at that point." Um, what? So maybe Brad, let's stay there, or Robert, jump in here. But is there? Would you say is there? Do you think there's a misunderstanding of any sorts? What don't exit planning advisors fully understand or fully appreciate about what you all are doing at MExit?
You can lead off while I think on this.
Okay. I'd say the biggest gap we have is, first off, awareness that there's a resource like this available to them.
Yes.
And then the second is kind of perspective on how it fits and how it can work for them. One of the things I did get from my experience in Ernst & Young and consulting is the way you build a billion-dollar consultancy is you break everything down to easy to replicate kind of SOP type of things where I can hand it to anybody, you know, skilled and capable, and they can follow the steps. And so building resources like that is really the lesson I learned there, and that's what kind of brought to what we built within MExit is having resources that if they see them, they realize that, okay, all I have to do is follow the steps.
Yes.
Do what's described in there, and this is doable, you know, because again, the key is that it's getting the team to share their smarts. I don't have to be the smartest person in the room. I have to be the best person to bring out their talents.
Well, and Brad likes to talk about the sports analogy, right? Many business owners like to think that they can be coaches too. But the reality is they are actually a player on the team. And you cannot coach the team from the ice, you cannot coach the team from the field, because you can't see the big picture. So two things that we recognize is, if you're going to be a good advisor coach to a business owner client, you have to get them to understand that your job is to hold everybody in that room accountable, including them. right? Because owner-led growth does not succeed. Externally managed or coached growth does. Harvard's proved it. Second thing that came to mind when I was thinking about the answer to this question is, in order for a team to be successful, you have to change their habits, right? Most of the programs that we have seen out there, and this is where we looked at all the different tools that were out there. You mentioned EOS, nothing wrong with it. It's a great tool for the purpose that it was designed for, right? Same with scaling up, same with the 4 disciplines of execution, same with a whole bunch of other ones. What people don't realize is they're all pieces of the puzzle. They're not the puzzle. So what we did was we said, let's go find the best practices, and then how do we make sure that we can affect change in a business? We do that by creating a cadence of accountability. A cadence of accountability is habit-changing activities, right? You cannot change the habits of an individual unless you have them do something different for 7 to 8 weeks. Then you can start to anchor that change. You can't do that for a team for at least 18 to 24 months, because they will always revert back to the mean if they can. So the big part of our job, and why I think we've been successful, is that cadence of accountability, which is we hold them accountable every week. We have a scrum every week. If you have your scrums 3 months apart, people don't follow habits. They fall out of habits very simply, very easily. So if you're holding them accountable to that habit and that discipline every week, it starts to become a habit, and within 12 to 18 months, it becomes a reflex. And that's what we need. We need them to have that cadence of accountability, that reflex, that go-to discipline that says, okay, we are doing this because, why? Why are we doing this? I'm not sure. But we know it works.
Yes.
There's one other big thing we do that is, I would say, part of our secret sauce, and that's every month. One of the things in our framework is, for strategy execution, you have to have people, process, and skills. And so every month we do at least a half-day training workshop, but we train the entire extended leadership team, and oftentimes we train the entire company. And the purpose of our training is really to give them a shared experience. We're not trying to educate them like a university course. Most business concepts are pretty simple and pretty straightforward. You can get the idea, in 15 minutes for most business concepts. The real value is in getting them to have a conversation with each other and to percolate around this and to figure out how that idea is relevant to them and how they can get utility and create value out of that idea for themselves. Because I've worked with 100 companies, and I've seen the same tool used in 100 different ways. Same tool, different result, and they all make it work because it's their idea. And that pulls them together. That cements the team in a way that nothing else does.
That's great. And Brad, for our listener, you said this to me recently, but differentiate between how you guys approach and differentiate training versus coaching.
Yeah. So we describe ourselves as teachers, mentors, and coaches, right? So we teach them the skills they need, because not everybody knows the skills they need. They may understand things, but they need to understand the fundamentals of the skill. Then we mentor them on how to apply it in their business, and then we coach them to do just that.
So people engage me to help them sell their companies, and several years ago, I identified that there was this big missing piece that in the SEPA community we would call the third leg of the stool, on helping my clients identify, what's my personal plan? What am I doing next? When Monday after the transaction closes, I'm not coming into my office anymore. Where am I going, and what am I doing? And more importantly, that fundamental human need for purpose. Okay, so that's what motivated me in my work and what I've developed in SecondWave Advisors. What is it that you saw your client when they come to you? What is the mistake, or what's missing generally from your clients that brings them to you? What's that mistake you see entrepreneurs making?
I would say that I think the mistake I see them make is the fear factor. It's the avoidance. It's the putting it off. And I think, to your point and what you're doing, a lot of times I think what the fear is driven by is they don't have a sense of what that next phase purpose could be. They define themselves, they are their business, and their business is them, and that so much defines them, that the idea, they even hate the word exit because it feels like an ending, and kind of it makes them feel anxious and scared, the fear of the unknown. But I think what they truly need is they need somebody who can help them figure out what could a more purposeful life be beyond their business, because that's absolutely possible if they choose to make it so, but they need help with that.
Yeah, I fully support that. I mean, one of the things that we've seen with our business owners that we deal with is that they get anxious about leaving, like Brad said, because they're business owners and they've been fighting for years to be successful. Leaving is not successful, right? So one of the things that they have to have a paradigm shift around is that it's not that they're leaving their business, it's that they're going towards something else that they really want to do.
That's well said. You as entrepreneurs have seen some dramatic change over the past 3 decades, right? And whether it's the silver tsunami, as we call it, or tell me again the Canadian term for it, the succession tsunami.
Yeah.
For the broader ex-planning community, for the SEPAs of the world, how are you guys looking at the next 3 to 5 years? What do you think is coming, and what's the impact? What's that big dent that you're going to make in the universe as it relates to that?
Couple things come to mind. One is our conversation that we had the other day when you said exit planners, to me, look like they're all standing on the shore watching the tsunami coming and hoping to get some business out of it when it hits, right? You can't do that. You have to go out and make that business owner understand that they need to do something. Because if they don't realize that many of them don't even know this is coming, quite frankly, right? If they don't understand that every business needs to be transformed before it can be sold, then they'll never sell. So the exit planning community needs to figure out, okay, how am I going to do that? Not what am I going to do? We've alluded to this before, right?
We go.
We all know what needs to be done, but very few people know how to do it. And that was what led us on our journey to create this how-to toolbox. Because if it isn't simple, if it isn't practical, if they can't implement it immediately, and they can't see immediate impact as a result of that implementation, then they'll never use it, and they'll drop off, right? So exit planners need to become not just better coaches. They need to have a coaching platform that allows them to deliver the results the owners need.
And I'd like to add to that, the other thing I think that's been missing for them, and we've actually built a playbook around a how-to, is how to get more business, how to get more of those business owners. And because every client we've got, we tried for the first 3 years selling directly to business owners, no success. Every client we've got's been through referrals. So we've kind of formulaically, again, make it so it's easily repeatable, set up a structure so that what you need to do is build and connect with a community of other advisors, because I'll tell you that business owner right now has already got some trusted advisors. So we need to build a community where we can start to connect with each other. Everyone is a trusted advisor for some business owners. But what other skills beyond what we do? What other advice are they going to need to get beyond what we can provide that we can connect them to? And, starting to float the community of advisors, financial, accounting, HR, estates planning, risk mitigation, family business, life coaching, all of these things that they're going to need the best advice they can get. And I don't see it as a cost. it's an investment because every one of those advisors is more than going to return the value in terms of the advice and support they give.
So true, so true. And to listeners, I've seen some of the MExit platform and can't say enough good about it. There's some, to Brad's point, the return on investment for what you can help clients do is really very, very high, and I can't say enough good about it. So, guys, as we wrap up here, tell the listeners how can they find you, how can they find MExit, and how would they engage with you two?
Robert?
Oh, easy. www.mexit.ca, or just reach out to Brad or myself on LinkedIn,
LinkedIn.
and or info@mexit.ca.
And you're part of the SEPA community, so we can find you both there as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciate it. And listeners, I can't say enough good about what they're doing. Check out the MExit platform. If you're interested in learning more about what you heard, including learning more about becoming a SecondWave advisor, please use the link in the description to visit the website, and you can receive the first few chapters of the book for free.